In the summer of 1988, Ohio was in severe drought, rivers dropped, fields burned, the landscape turned brown. But in Wyandotte County, in the flat farmland of northwestern Ohio, one circular patch of grass stayed green, impossibly green, as if something underground was pulling water upward through the soil. The property owner noticed. He owned a commercial cave nearby called Indian Trail Caverns. He thought the green patch might be a sinkhole, possibly another cave entrance. He brought in equipment and started digging. 15,000 cubic yards of dirt later, he broke through into a funnel-shaped sinkhole that opened into a sealed cave. The cave had been buried under the surface for roughly 10,000 years, sealed by sediment, untouched. And inside it was a record of life, death, and human activity at the end of the last ice age that no one in Ohio expected to find. Sheridan Cave, named after the property, located near the creek drainage that runs through Wyandotte County. A time capsule sealed by nature, opened by drought, containing evidence that humans lived in Ohio alongside animals that have been extinct for 10 millennia. The bones of flat-headed peccaries, the youngest dated specimens of that species on Earth. Giant beaver remains, short-faced bear, stag moose. And in the same layers, unmistakably, the tools of people who were there at the same time. A Clovis point. Bone projectile points carved and sharpened by human hands, butchered animal remains. Evidence that humans were in this cave, at this creek in this corner of Ohio, 11,500 years ago, hunting animals that would be extinct within centuries. Subscribe. Because what Sheridan Cave revealed, and what the creek systems of Ohio have been hiding, could change when and how we understand humans arrived in the Americas. Dr. Brian Redmond, curator of archaeology at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, described Sheridan Cave as one of a mere handful of North American cave sites where buried deposits reveal the intersection of humans and Ice Age megafauna in a sealed, stratified context. The cave contained over 60 species of vertebrate fossils. The deposits were layered chronologically, oldest at the bottom, youngest at the top, like pages in a book. Each layer represented a different period, and the layer that mattered, the one dated to roughly 11,500 years ago, contained both extinct animal remains and human artifacts in direct association. The human artifacts were specific: a stone side scraper manufactured from Wyandotte chert, a raw material that outcrops over 400 kilometers away in southern Indiana. Whoever made that tool either traveled 400 kilometers to obtain the stone or obtained it through a trade network that covered that distance. In either case, the tool in Sheridan Cave represents a connection between Ohio and southern Indiana at the end of the Ice Age. 2 bone projectile points were found, carved and shaped from animal bone with incised markings. These are not random broken bones. They are manufactured weapons designed for killing, found in the same layer as the animals they may have been used to kill, and a fluted Clovis point. The signature weapon of the Clovis people, the culture that was long considered the first human population in the Americas. The point had been reworked, resharpened, and reused, suggesting it had been carried for a long time by someone who could not easily replace it. The animals in the same layer told the other half of the story. Flat-headed peccaries, a pig-like animal that went extinct at the end of the Pleistocene. The specimens from Sheridan Cave are the youngest dated flat-headed peccary remains on the planet. The last of their kind may have walked past this cave, fallen into this sinkhole, and died in the same place where humans were sheltering. The cave was not a permanent habitation. It was a resource site. Animals fell into the sinkhole and could not climb out. Humans discovered this natural trap and used it. The cave provided shelter, the sinkhole provided food, and 11,500 years ago, in a corner of Ohio that is now flat farmland with no visible topography, people were living at the intersection of extinction, but Sheridan Cave held something else in that 11,500-year-old layer. Something that expanded the site's importance from regional archaeology to global debate. Dr. Kenneth Tankersley from the University of Cincinnati, who co-led the excavation with Redmond, found nanodiamonds in the Clovis Age deposits. Microscopic diamonds, some of them shattered, along with Lonsdaleite, a form of carbon that is created exclusively under the extreme pressure and heat of a cosmic impact. The nanodiamonds and Lonsdaleite appeared in the same layer as the Clovis artifacts and the extinct animal bones. They did not appear in the layers above or below. They were confined to a single geological horizon that corresponded to a single moment in time, roughly 12,800 years ago. This layer is the Younger Dryas boundary, and it is one of the most contested horizons in all of archaeology. The Younger Dryas was a sudden return to Ice Age conditions that lasted roughly 1,200 years, beginning around 12,800 years ago. Temperatures dropped, glaciers advanced, And across North America, the megafauna, the mammoths, the mastodons, the giant sloths, the saber-toothed cats began to disappear. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis proposes that a comet or asteroid fragment struck the Earth or exploded in the atmosphere roughly 12,800 years ago. The impact triggered the cooling event, caused catastrophic fires across the continent, and contributed to the extinction of the megafauna and the disappearance of the Clovis culture. If you have made it this far, subscribe, because the evidence from Sheridan Cave places Ohio at the center of this debate. The hypothesis is controversial. Some geologists accept the impact evidence. Others argue that nanodiamonds can be produced by non-impact processes. The debate has been running for over 15 years and has not been resolved. But Sheridan Cave provides something that few other sites can: a sealed, stratified cave deposit with human artifacts, extinct animal remains, and potential impact markers all in the same layer. The cave was closed by nature and preserved in a way that surface sites, which are subject to erosion, ploughing, and disturbance, cannot match. The nanodiamonds at Sheridan Cave do not prove a comet killed the mammoths, but they prove that something deposited impact-consistent materials in an Ohio cave at exactly the moment when the mammoths started dying and the Clovis people started disappearing. The creek in Wyandotte County did not just preserve human history. It may have preserved the evidence of the event that ended it. Sheridan Cave is not an isolated data point. Ohio's creek systems and waterways have been revealing evidence of ancient human occupation that challenges the standard timeline for decades. The Nobles Pond site in Stark County, near Canton, produced one of the densest concentrations of Clovis artifacts ever found in the eastern United States. Over 100 Clovis points and thousands of stone tools were recovered from a site near a glacial pond fed by local creek systems. The density of artifacts suggests not a temporary camp, but a major gathering place, a location where Clovis people returned repeatedly over generations. The Paleo Crossing site in Medina County, discovered during highway construction along a creek drainage, produced radiocarbon dates placing human occupation at roughly 11,000 years ago with stone tools that predate classic Clovis technology. The site is one of a growing number that suggests human presence in Ohio may extend earlier than the Clovis horizon. And then there is the broader context. Ohio sits at a geographic intersection that makes it uniquely important for understanding the peopling of the Americas. During the last ice age, the Laurentide ice sheet covered northern Ohio. The southern part of the state was ice-free tundra and boreal forest, a habitable corridor between the glacier and the warmer lands to the south. The creek systems that flow southward from the former ice margin into the Ohio River drainage were the highways of the first Americans in this region. They followed the water, they camped along the creeks. They hunted the animals that gathered at the waterways, and the sediments deposited by those creeks buried and preserved the evidence of their presence in ways that open landscapes did not. Every major Paleo-Indian site in Ohio is associated with a waterway. Sheridan Cave sits near a creek drainage. Nobles Pond was fed by a creek. Paleo Crossing was found in a creek valley. The water that sustained the first Ohioans also preserved the evidence of their existence. The creeks of Ohio are not just waterways. They are archives, sealed in sediment, buried under farmland, waiting for drought, construction, or a property owner with a backhoe to open them. The standard textbook timeline of human arrival in the Americas has been under assault for 50 years. The Clovis first model, which placed the first Americans at roughly 13,500 years ago, crossing the Bering Land Bridge from Siberia, was the consensus from the 1930s until the evidence began to crack it. Meadowcroft Rock Shelter in Pennsylvania, on Cross Creek just above its junction with the Ohio River, produced evidence of human occupation dating to 19,000 years ago. The site was excavated by Dr. James Adovasio beginning in 1973. The dates were attacked, questioned, and dismissed by the Clovis first establishment for decades. Adovasio described the academic resistance as a blood sport. The White Sands footprints in New Mexico, dated in 2021 to between 21,000 and 23,000 years ago, pushed the timeline back further. Humans were in the Americas during the last glacial maximum, when the ice sheets were at their peak. The land bridge hypothesis, which required the ice to retreat before humans could cross, could not explain footprints made while the ice was still at maximum extent. The Cerruti Mastodon site in San Diego, published in Nature in 2017, proposed human activity in California 130,000 years ago. If correct, this would push the timeline back so far that the humans present were not Homo sapiens at all, but an earlier hominin species. Ohio sits at the center of this rewrite because its creek-preserved sites provide something the other sites cannot: continuous stratified records. Sheridan Cave has layers spanning thousands of years, each one sealed by the next, each one containing different species of animals and different types of human activity. The cave is a timeline, Read it from bottom to top and you read the story of the last ice age in Ohio, from the megafauna at the bottom to the modern species at the top, with the human presence threaded through the middle. The creek in Ohio could rewrite human history not because it contains the oldest evidence, it could rewrite it because it contains the most complete evidence, a sealed cave, a stratified record, human tools alongside the youngest known specimens of extinct animals, potential comet impact markers in the same layer, and raw materials sourced from 400 kilometers away, proving that the people who used this cave were connected to a network that stretched across the eastern United States 11,500 years ago. The old model said humans arrived in the Americas 13,500 years ago and were isolated bands of hunters following herds across empty landscape. The evidence from Ohio's creeks says something different. It says they were networked, connected, trading materials over hundreds of miles, using natural traps like sinkholes to harvest game, returning to the same locations for generations, and present at the moment when the megafauna disappeared, the climate shifted and something deposited microscopic diamonds in the soil. The creek in Wyandotte County was unremarkable, flat farmland. No visible features. The only reason anyone looked was because the grass stayed green during a drought. Beneath that green patch was a cave that had been sealed for 10,000 years. Inside that cave was a record that the surface had lost. Ohio has 25,000 miles of streams and creeks. Sheridan Cave was found by accident. The question is not what one cave in Wyandotte County revealed. The question is what the other 25,000 miles are still hiding. The creek in Ohio is telling us three things. First, humans were in Ohio at the end of the Ice Age, living alongside animals that would be extinct within centuries. The tools and the bones are in the same layer. The association is direct. Whatever killed the megafauna, the humans were there to witness it. Second, those humans were not isolated. They carried stone tools made from raw materials sourced 400 kilometers away. They were part of a network, a system of movement, trade, and communication that stretched across the eastern United States before any civilization existed. The Clovis people were not wandering bands. They were connected communities. Third, something happened at the end of the Clovis period that left microscopic impact markers in the soil of an Ohio cave. Whether that something was a comet, an airburst, or a natural process that produces nanodiamonds without an impact, the markers are there, in the same layer, at the same time, in a sealed cave that nature preserved and drought revealed, a green patch of grass in a drought, a property owner with a backhoe, a sinkhole that opened into a sealed cave, and inside, a 10,000-year-old record of the last days of the Ice Age in Ohio, complete with the humans who lived through it, the animals that did not survive it, and the possible cosmic evidence of why. The creek in Ohio is not famous. It does not have a name that anyone outside Wyandotte County would recognize. It runs through farmland. It feeds a drainage that nobody has mapped for archaeological significance. But beneath that farmland, in caves and sinkholes and sediment layers, that the creeks have been sealing for 10,000 years, there is a record that the surface lost, a record that the plows and the highways and the centuries destroyed everywhere else, a record that only survives where the water carried it underground and the sediment buried it before anyone knew to look. 25,000 miles of creeks, one cave found by accident, one record that could rewrite what we know about the first Americans, the last megafauna, and the event that separated them. The creek in Ohio is not done talking. We just started listening. A sealed cave found because the grass was green during a drought. The youngest known flat-headed peccary remains on Earth. A Clovis point made 11,500 years ago. Stone tools sourced from 400 kilometers away. Nanodiamonds in the same layer as the extinction. And 25,000 miles of Ohio creeks that have never been surveyed. The creek in Ohio is not the oldest site in the Americas. It is the most complete, a sealed, stratified record of the moment when the Ice Age ended, the megafauna disappeared, and the first Americans were standing in an Ohio cave watching it happen. Drop a comment. Did you know Ohio had evidence this significant? Did you know a drought and a backhoe revealed a 10,000-year-old time capsule in flat farmland? Subscribe for more. We will see you next time.